America's founding document, a blueprint for limited government. The United States Constitution stands as a testament to the principle of limited government. Our founding fathers, having just fought a war to free themselves from tyranny, understood the dangers of unchecked power. They meticulously crafted a document that explicitly outlines what the federal government can do. This concept, known as federalism, is fundamental to the American system of governance. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Any power not specifically granted to the federal government is reserved for the states or the people. This is the bedrock of our republic. The power of the purse and the power to declare war. Congress's constitutional authority. Article 1 of the Constitution outlines the powers of the legislative branch, Congress. Among these powers are some of the most impactful in government: the power of the purse and the power to declare war. Congress alone has the authority to raise and spend money, ensuring that the government's actions are funded by the people's representatives. Similarly, the decision to commit American troops to war rests solely with Congress, not the President. This safeguard prevents the executive branch from unilaterally dragging the nation into unnecessary conflicts. These two powers highlight the Founding Fathers' intent to place significant checks on the potential for government overreach. Beyond these critical powers, Article 1 meticulously lists other areas where Congress has authority. These include establishing a uniform system of naturalization, coining money, establishing post offices and roads, promoting the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries, and constituting tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. The enumerated powers, a clear and limited scope. Each of these enumerated powers is specific and defined. Nowhere in Article 1, or anywhere else in the Constitution, is the federal government granted broad, sweeping powers. The Founding Fathers understood that power, when concentrated in the hands of a few, poses a direct threat to individual liberty and often leads to tyranny. To further emphasize this point, consider the vast array of activities that the federal government has absolutely no authority over. The Constitution is silent on matters such as baseball, rock music, video games, and firearms, but they still unconstitutionally hold hearings, investigate, and regulate these activities. This is not an oversight, it is a deliberate design. The founders believed that these and countless other aspects of life were best left to the states, communities, and individuals to decide, free from federal interference. The principle of enumerated powers is essential to understanding the limits on federal authority. If a power is not explicitly granted to the federal government in the Constitution, it does not possess that power. This principle is not a matter of interpretation, it is the foundation upon which our system of government rests. Firearms, a right neither protected nor granted by government. This understanding of enumerated powers is particularly relevant when considering the issue of firearms. The Second Amendment to the Constitution clearly states, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed." Note that the Second Amendment does not grant the right to keep and bear arms. It recognizes that this right already exists, pre-existing the government itself. This right is not bestowed by government. It is inherent in our humanity. The Second Amendment's purpose is to prevent government infringement upon this pre-existing right. The Founding Fathers understood that an armed citizenry is the ultimate safeguard against tyranny. They had just fought a revolution against a tyrannical government that sought to disarm the colonists. They enshrined the right to bear arms in the Constitution to ensure that the American people would always have the means to defend themselves against any threat to their liberty, whether from criminals or a tyrannical government. Section 5. The Second Amendment, a bulwark against tyranny. Any attempt by the federal government to regulate, restrict, or ban firearms is a blatant violation of the Second Amendment and a direct assault on our God-given rights. If we lose the right to keep and bear arms, how are we going to defend our other rights? The Constitution does not grant the federal government any authority over firearms. Therefore, any such action is unconstitutional. Some argue that the Second Amendment only applies to militias, not individuals. This is a flawed, dangerous, and moronic interpretation. The Constitution clearly states the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It does not say the right of the militia or the right of the states. The Second Amendment protects an absolute, fundamental, and individual right, just like the First Amendment protects the rights of individuals to speak, assemble, and worship freely. The Founding Fathers understood that the right to bear arms is essential for self-defense, deterring tyranny, and ensuring the security of a free state. They knew that an unarmed populace is easy prey for criminals and tyrants alike. The Second Amendment is a bulwark against both. Section 6. The dangers of federal overreach, eroding liberty. When the federal government exceeds its constitutional limits, it undermines the very foundation of our republic. It erodes individual liberty, stifles innovation, and creates a climate of fear and uncertainty. Every time the federal government usurps a power not granted to it by the Constitution, it chips away at the freedoms we hold dear. The consequences of federal overreach are far-reaching. It leads to higher taxes, increased regulation, and a bloated bureaucracy that is unaccountable to the people. It creates a system where the few dictate to the many, where individual initiative is stifled, and where the pursuit of happiness is replaced with the pursuit of government handouts. It is our duty as citizens to hold our elected officials accountable to their oath to uphold the Constitution. If they violate that oath, they should be immediately removed from office and charged with treason. We must resist any attempt by the federal government to expand its power beyond what is explicitly granted in our founding document. Section 7. The Constitution, our guiding light, our safeguard. The Constitution is not a relic of the past, it is a document set in stone that continues to safeguard our liberties today. It is the blueprint for a free and prosperous society, where individual rights are respected and the government is accountable to the people. It is our duty to study the Constitution, to understand its principles, and to teach them to future generations. We must never take our freedoms for granted. They were hard-won by those who came before us, and it is our responsibility to preserve them for those who come after. The principles enshrined in the Constitution are timeless limited government, individual liberty, free markets, and a peaceful foreign policy. These principles have made America the envy of the world, and they continue to offer the best hope for a future of peace and prosperity. Section 8. Upholding our rights, preserving our freedom. The time to reclaim our Constitution is now. We must demand that our elected officials honor their oath of office and uphold the supreme law of the land. We must resist any attempt to chip away at our liberties, to infringe on our God-given rights, or to transform our government into something the founders never intended. Let us remember the words of Thomas Jefferson. The God who gave us life, gave us liberty at the same time. Our rights are not granted by government, they are endowed by our Creator. Let us stand together, united in our commitment to liberty, and ensure that the United States of America remains a beacon of freedom for generations to come. Keep your head down and your powder dry.